kitchen. Well, I got my official pizza hat on today, so I think you can guess what today's show is going to be all about. So, continuing on, I should say, on a little pizza journey. We're going to talk about some New York pizza today. We already did Detroit. Now we're going to talk about New York, but more specifically, a certain region of New York. Now, when you say New York pizza, I mean, obviously, New York's got the best pie out there. I know that. But when we talk about New York pizza, when I mention New York pizza, right away, we think about a nice thin crust, round Napolitan pie, or maybe like a nice thick, pillowy Sicilian pie. But that's not what we're going to do today. If we travel a little further up north on the New York Thruway, we're going to hit Buffalo. And apparently, and I didn't know this up until a couple months ago, Buffalo has their own version of pizza. Okay, just like Chicago deep dish, just like Detroit, just like Philly tomato pie, Buffalo has their own regional style of pizza. Well, naturally, this blew my fucking mind, right? So I had to do a little homework. I had to do a little pizza homework for you kids. And through extensive research in the pizza angles, I came up with the best quintessential Buffalo style pizza. Now, I know what you're thinking. Are there wings on it? No, there's no wings. There's no chicken. There's no Frank's hot sauce. Buffalo style pizza is actually a cross between a New York and between a Neapolitan and a Sicilian pie. It's depending on where you order it. Sometimes it comes in a rectangular sheet, okay, cooked in a sheet pan. Sometimes it's made round, but it's always cooked in a sheet pan, whether it's round or square. So it depends on how big you want your pizza. You could order a half sheet, you could order a half a pie, whole pie, party size. So sky's the limit. The thing with this is the crust. It's not exactly thin, it's not exactly thick. It's got a very focaccia-like crust. So if you've had focaccia bread, you're kind of in the neighborhood, okay? Which means we're going to be using a high gluten flour to make this, which we talk when we get to the pizza dough part, you'll see what I mean. The sauce for a Buffalo style pie is also a little different. It's not exactly like, traditional pizza sauce that you'd find downstate. You'll see what I mean when we get to that. So I hope you guys are excited as I am, because you know me, I love pizza, and I love pizza from different areas. It's another jogging suit Sunday, so I'm going to take my jacket off. I'm going to crack me a cold one, and we're going to get to work on making some pie. Let's talk about our dough. So yeah, as you can see, I had to get the macchina out. That's Italian for the machine. That's what that is. I love this fucking thing. So before we get started, we got to first bloom some yeast. Okay, so I'm going to use some active dry yeast for this. Now, in my previous pizza videos, I talked about rapid rise yeast, which for Detroit pie, that's perfect. Because we're going to use a high gluten flour on this one to get that nice focaccia-like texture, I typically like to go with active dry yeast for this. It gives it a more yeasty, that's actually a word, a yeastier flavor. Yeasty. So what I did, I put a cup of warm water in my mixing bowl, and I got a packet of active dry yeast, okay? So I'm going to bloom this first. Okay, so what you do is, you can smell that, okay? So I get it all out of there. All right, so we're going to give this a little stir to make sure it's alive, okay? When you see it start to foam, that's how you know it's alive. Get all those lumps out, okay? You see the little bubbles that are starting to form? That's how we know this is alive. So this yeast is good, okay? Which I didn't think it wouldn't be because it was fairly fresh. But you never know. You never know. So now what we're going to do to this is we're going to add a teaspoon of sugar, okay? Because you got to feed the yeast. Just make sure that sugar. Yep, okay. So you got about a teaspoon of sugar. All right. And again, we're just going to give this a quick little mix. Okay. Nothing crazy. So we're just going to let this bloom for a few seconds. Let that all bubble up. So it's going to take about, about a good solid minute for this to start to bloom. Okay, so as you can see, our Our yeast is all nicely bloomed. We have proof of life once again. So to this, we're going to add the rest of our ingredients, which is another teaspoon of salt. Okay. So I got a teaspoon of kosher salt going in there. I got 3 teaspoons of extra virgin olive oil going in. Okay. Give it some flavor. Now here's the important part. Our bread flour. Okay. Now you could definitely use AP for this if you wanted to. I don't recommend that you do because AP is not going to give it the kind of density and stretch that we're looking for. Bread flour is a high protein, high gluten flour, so it gives it a lot more stretch and it's going to give it that nice focaccia-like texture that we're looking for. Okay, you could also use double O flour for this, but that might be a little too fancy for Buffalo. Typically, double O flour is something I would use in a Neapolitan or Napolitan pie. Okay. This crust is going to have more of a, let's get a little scraper here. There we go. Get the rest of our bread flour in there. Come on. This is going to have a nice focaccia-like texture. Okay. So, we got all our ingredients in the pool. We're going to put our dough hook attachment on this thing, and then we're going to start mixing it slow, okay, until it forms a nice tight ball. Scrape down the sides as much as you need. It should take a couple minutes. I'm going to put my splatter guard on here. Okay, so as you can see, our dough is pretty tight together. You know, came together really nice and tight. It should form a nice sticky little dough ball, okay? So it should wrap around the hook nice. Now this is going to be fairly sticky, so what you want to do is you want to oil up your fingers a little bit, okay, to deal with this. And then I'm going to show you the next step of this. All right, so you just want to get the dough off the hook, okay? And like I said, it should be a pretty tight, sticky little ball of dough. See that? That's what you want, okay? Okay, so I got my dough out. It's actually nice and warm, and oh, it smells like pizza dough. So you want to see what I'm doing is I'm turning the dough into itself, and what that's going to do is form those nice little airy pockets in there. Okay, so now that I got my dough ball nice and formed and tight, I'm going to put it in a bowl that I've oiled. Okay, I'm going to drizzle a little bit more extra virgin olive oil over the top. So just want to rub that in nice. Okay. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to proof it in this bowl for about an hour or two, depending upon how warm your house is. The warmer it is, the faster it'll proof. But usually about an hour or two, and this thing will double in size. You cover it with some plastic wrap. What I like to do is wrap a towel around it, almost like a blanket, like I wrap a towel around the bowl, and that actually speeds up the rising process. Now you could do this day before and proof it in your fridge overnight. It's going to need about 8 hours. The colder the dough is, the longer it will take to rise. But the proofing is important because it's going to help develop that nice yeasty flavor that we're looking for. Okay, so our dough is resting. I'm going to cover it with plastic wrap, wrap a towel around the bowl, let it hang out for about 2 hours, and then we're going to start our pizza sauce. Okay, so let's talk about the sauce for our buffalo style pizza. First of all, it's very different from any other kind of pizza sauce that I've ever used. Typically, it's a little bit on the sweeter side. And also, they don't really use a lot of tomato product. Matter of fact, the only thing that they really use as far as tomato product in this is tomato paste. So the sauce is basically tomato paste and water. I know. Nothing I've ever used before, not normal. But then again, this is buffalo. So to keep things authentic, we're going to do a buffalo style. So I got about a tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil in a medium-sized saucepan. And to that, I'm going to add my tomato paste. So you got about 6 ounces, one of the little cans of tomato paste. And we're going to add this to our oil. And we're just going to kind of caramelize it a little bit. And we're going to season it up. Okay, you want to use a good quality tomato paste since that's really all that's going in this. Okay. It's like making music over here. You gotta make a little music in the kitchen, you know. Make some noise with the pots and pans. Okay, so we got our tomato paste down. Okay, and like I said, this tends to be on the sweeter side. Now, as far as seasoning goes, here's what we got. I have a little myriad of spices, as you could see. I got a teaspoon each of kosher salt, garlic powder, onion powder. half a teaspoon of dried basil, as you can see that, half a teaspoon of dried oregano, quarter teaspoon of red pepper flakes, and a half a teaspoon of crushed black pepper. Okay, and we're also going to add 2 teaspoons of sugar and 2 cups of water. Okay, so get our tomato paste and olive oil incorporated. Okay, if my grandfather was alive, now, like as I said in previous videos, it's kind of how I got my pizza start. My grandfather had a pizzeria, and I was the slave labor. So if my grandfather was alive and saw me doing this, he would have lost his ever-loving fucking mind. He would have like, God, so what do you make? What kind of sauce is this? Would you get a special kind of stupid? So we're going to add our seasonings in there. We're going to add our sugar. Okay. Now you want this to saute just 3-4 minutes, just until it caramelizes. Be careful it doesn't burn. Okay, that's why you want to have the heat medium-low. Okay. See, it does smell pretty good. I'm not going to lie. Okay. I know you would think, why not use fresh garlic, fresh onion? But this is how they do it in Buffalo, so far be it from me to insult them. Okay, so this is toasting up nice. I got 2 cups of cold water that I'm going to add to this and whisk it in. Okay, and then we want this to come to a simmer. All right. So you want to whisk your water and your tomato paste together. Okay, until it's all emulsified. And then you're going to let this simmer for about 15-20 minutes until it reduces down and you have a nice medium thick sauce. Because remember, it's also going to thicken up while it's cooking in the oven too. And there you got it, Buffalo style pizza sauce, man. I don't know. I'm hoping this is going to be as good as they say. That looks all incorporated. Let's give it a little... You want to stir this every so often too, make sure it doesn't burn, doesn't stick. It's got a nice sheen. Let's give it a little taste, huh? You know what? That does taste like pizza sauce. Not gonna lie, it's not bad. It's not bad. They're onto something in Buffalo, I gotta tell you. I mean, this might be a quick little way to make a fast pizza sauce. Alright, so we're gonna let this simmer. Let it come up to a little simmer and then reduce it, like I said, 15-20 minutes till it reduces, probably by a third, and then we're ready to assemble our pizza. So, as you can see, my dough has doubled in size. Look at that. I mean, it's been sitting there nice and proofed. I have a baking board that I lightly floured. I'm going to turn my dough out into my flour. Look how nice and pillowy it is. I should punch this down first. Okay? I'm just going to punch that down a little bit. Okay, now we're going to get our dough out. Oh, you got to smell this. Wow. Okay. And I'm going to probably use about half of this. Now, actually, you can... Now, if you wanted to make a whole sheet pan of pizza for like 20, 30 people, then obviously you'd use all of this dough. But I'm going to take my dough cutter here. I'm going to portion this out. You can keep this in the fridge. It actually freezes pretty well. So... Alright, I'm going to take this, we're going to put that back in our bowl, save that for another project. Like I said, you could store that in the freezer, not, real simple, it keeps very well. If you're going to use it, you take it out, let it thaw out, let it get to room temp before you start messing around with it, and don't over knead your dough. So, as I said, I got my oven set to 500 degrees. I'm going to take them out. Now, like I said, you could do this in a bunch of different kinds of pans. I'm going to use the trusty old cast iron pan. We got an old cast iron pan. Just going to put a good couple glugs of oil in here. Okay, just some regular olive oil. I'm going to add my dough. All right, which I stretched out a little bit. You want to stretch this into the corners of the pan. Do not force it. Okay, just it'll go. Don't worry, it'll go. Okay. We use the high gluten flour. You don't want to rip your dough, okay? Because then you'll have a disaster. All right. And once it's stretched out to its max, let it rest 5 minutes and then restretch it, okay? So we're going to let this rest for a minute, and then we're going to finish stretching it out into the corners of the pan. Okay, and then we're going to put our toppings. So we got our dough relaxed in our pan nice. Now we got our pizza sauce that we made. Let me tell you something. This actually came out pretty well balanced, I got to say. It's not something I would put on pasta, but for pizza sauce, it works. I mean, it works out pretty well. So you want to start with a thin layer. You want to run your sauce all the way to the edge. Okay, that's another thing about Buffalo style pizza. There's no visible naked crust like they have downstate. Okay, you want your sauce to be pretty cool. Okay, so like I said, we're going to run this out to the edge. Even distribution. But this sauce is actually very well balanced. It's got the right balance of heat and sweet. Truthfully, when you make bolognese, you don't really use a lot of tomato product either. You're just using tomato paste. So I don't know why that seems strange to me, but hey, it is what it is, right? Just gonna put a little bit more. All right, but they're definitely onto something. Okay, so we got our pie sauced. Now for the cheese. Same thing. We're going to run our cheese and toppings all the way out to the edge. Now, for the cheese, I'm using 16 ounces. You're not going to obviously use the full 16 ounces on this. Of low moisture part skim mozzarella. So it gets that nice melty stretch without actually making your pie soggy. Most people think fresh mozzarella is good for pizza. It's not. It's only good on, like, you know, if you make it like a brick oven Neapolitan pizza, you use a couple slices here and there, and you're going to cook that at 1,000 degrees, so it's going to evaporate a lot of the moisture in the cheese. When you're making, you know, pie like this, you want a low moisture style mozzarella. And like I said, they're going to bake this right to the edge, okay? Buffalo pizzas, from what I've seen in videos and stuff, aren't the prettiest looking things, but they sure as hell look good, I'm not gonna lie. Okay, this is kind of like almost reminiscent of some kind of like a pan pizza. This is kind of like grandma's pizza. You know, everybody's nonna used to make pizza somewhere similar to this. All right, so okay, good. So we got a good amount of cheese down, a little bit more. Hey, what's a pizza without cheese, right? Next, pepperoni. Everybody's favorite topping in Buffalo. So I got regular stick pepperoni that I cut into like these little 1/8-inch rounds so that they cup and char. Okay, so we want to run that again all the way around the edges. Okay, there you go. There's our pie. So we're gonna get this in the oven, but first I gotta show you a little Tommy trick. First, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fry the bottom of my crust. So I got my cast iron pan over some medium high heat. Okay, you just want to let this sit. When you start to hear the bottom of this sizzle, then it's ready for the oven. So what you want to do is you want to get the bottom nice and crispy. So you want to get that nice golden focaccia-like texture, and then pow, right in the oven. The bottom of our pan is sizzling. Okay, you can see it. See a little bubbling around here? Now this is ready for our 500-degree oven. 20 minutes and we're good to go in the oven. Okay, so in 20 minutes we're gonna have some nice Buffalo style pizza. Okay, so our pizza's out of the oven. Take a look at this. Look at that crust. Huh? It's got a nice perfect focaccia bottom. So we're gonna slice this up. Got my trusty pizza wheel here. And this pie smells unbelievable. Got a nice little caramelization of cheese around the edges. The pepperoni cupped and charred perfectly. This is just going to be lights out. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna go with this little bad boy here. Yeah, look at that. Look at that crust. Look at that. Perfect, right? All right. Let's plate this up and let's go munch. All right. So, as you can see, that pizza's looking. It's calling my name. I got a nice cold Yingling to wash it down. So let's try his buffalo style pizza. Okay? Like I said, it's got a nice, you can hear that it's got a nice little focaccia like crust. All right. It's got the perfect kind of chew. Not like a Sicilian, it's a little denser. More like a focaccia. Reminds me of grandma's. That sauce, that buffalo style sauce, you know what? Works perfectly. Like I said, it's got a nice blend of sweet and hot. Pepperoni just gives it that little extra punch. Hey, they know how to do pizza in Buffalo. So, thanks for stopping into the neighborhood kitchen. Hope to see you again soon, and I'll see you when I see you.